look at this. You're in London, you're on a business trip, you're staying in Greenwich, and you want to buy some food. So you go into the local aldi's, like this one, and you think, I'm going to go in here and buy some food so that I can feed myself. And then you approach the barrier, and look, you can't even get in the shop without having a QR code to scan here or to scan here, and then you can go and buy things. Now this looks to me like the beginning stages of the digital prison that we keep talking about. What do you think?
Shalom, shalom, shalom. All praises to the Most High, Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, which is to say, in the Paleo-Hebrew, Yahweh, which is the name of our Heavenly Father, meaning He is, Bahashim, which means in the name, Yahweh Shai, meaning He is our salvation. And those are the names of who the world ignorantly calls God, the Heavenly Father, and Jesus, His only begotten Son, who, by the way, only came for the Israelites. Now, what brings us to our discussion / topic this afternoon is the mark of the beast, okay? Now, the little minute clip you saw was a precursor or a forerunner or a predecessor to the system that's going to be ran by the beast, which is going to showcase the mark, which is the RFID microchip, all right? And unless you have that, you won't be able to buy and sell, as we saw in that video that was just played for you, okay? Because in that grocery store in London, I believe it was Greenwich or Aldi, they were not allowing you to come in to buy unless you had that QR code to enter into the shop, okay? And they had a woman there that was turning people away if they didn't have the QR code to enter into to buy, okay? And we can easily see how they're going to transition that into, if you don't have that RFID microchip, you won't be able to come in to buy. And if you do, they're going to have troops there to turn you back. And if you try to break in, they're going to meet you with lethal force, okay? So you won't be able to buy or sell, okay? If you don't have that mark, you won't be able to buy. And if you are a business, you won't be able to sell, okay? So it says a person, this is the definition of a precursor.
Precursor.
It says a person or thing that comes before another of the same kind, a forerunner, all right? And we just saw a thing that's going to come before the same, all right? We just saw how in order for you to go in and buy and to shop, you would need some type of identity, okay? A QR code on your phone. Well, guess what? That's going to soon transition into what? A microchip inside of your hand, all right? Because why? You won't be able to buy without it, all right? Or sell if you have a business, because let's say you selling flowers on the side of the road, or you setting up a shop at a flea market or whatever. Guess what? You ain't going to be able to sell without it. Because why? This system wants to track every transaction you make, all right, on both sides, buying and selling, okay? This is where we going at, into a what? A totalitarian system where this government, this new world order, will have control over every aspect of your life, all right? Now we look at this forerunner. It says a person or thing that precedes the coming or development of someone or something else, all right? And that video was a forerunner of the beast system that's going to come and take over the whole globe. All right, this is going to be a global event, not just in London, not just in America, but everywhere. All right, everywhere. Because why? These are the implications of a government or a new world order that's coming to seize everything you have. Everything. Okay, your house, your car, your land, whatever. You won't be able to keep it. You won't be able to obtain it because they're going to seize it. All right, there's a thing called eminent domain. All right, where they can seize and take your property and compensate you in the what? In the return, okay? Now they're going to give you the money, but in order for you to receive it, guess what? You're going to have that chip. All right? It's just the way that this society is headed to, because why? It's all biblical prophecy. So it says the icebox was a forerunner of today's refrigerator, Salakia. Just like this system that we're seeing right now is the forerunner of the beast system to come, okay? Hint, the video that we just saw, the Aldi in London, Greenwich, okay? Now let's look at the word predecessor. It says a person who held a job or office before the current holder. His approach is very similar to that of his predecessor. All right. And what's holding the job or the office of the RFID microchip right now is this QR, this technology, that's on your smartphone, because the smartphone is going to eventually be turned into the RFID microchip. All right. Because they're running out of ways to continue to make this phone smart and wearable. And eventually it's just going to come to the point where they're going to put it inside of you. All right. See, this smartphone, this technology is going to be the predecessor of what? That RFID microchip, because on it, you're going to be able to do everything. All right. Buy, sell. And the one that they're going to have that you have in your forehead, it's going to be the equivalent of the succession of the smartphone. All right. Everything you can do on your smartphone, you're going to be able to do with that chip that they're going to put inside your head, your brain, your forehead. Okay? So this is where we're at with it. Now let's go ahead and get the prophecy written of in Revelation 13. Come on. This is the book of Revelation, chapter 13 and verse 16. And this is why it's important that you look up words, okay? Because these words are important. It gives you a in-depth or a, inside look of what's really being said. Verse 16 says, and he causes all. Now we know the he is Esau, Edom, all right? This system, okay? These elites, particularly these bankers, all right? Your Rothschilds, your DuPonts, your elites of these societies. And he causes all. When you go into that word causes, it goes into constitute. So he's going to make it mandatory and that in order for you to buy and sell, you must take this mark. It says, and he causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, right? Because they're going to do away with the middle class. It's either going to be rich or poor, all right? And if you're rich, you're going to have this mark. And if you're poor, you're going to have it. It goes on to say free and bond, right? See, they're going to control every aspect of this society, all right? Right down to the people that's locked up behind prison, all right? Because there was this chip, or I believe it was called Cognify, where you can get an implant inside your head to reduce your sentence. All right, let's say you're doing a life sentence right now. They're going to come up to you and offer you the chip and say, we can reduce your sentence to a few days. All right. It's called Cognify. All right. And what happens is you put this brain chip inside of your brain and it gives you, supposed to have you sympathize with your victim because you're supposed to relive the incidents, but from their point of view. All right. And your time could be sped up because it's going to feel like you served your whole sentence, but in a fraction of that time. So you did 100-year sentence, you could do that sentence in probably a week. Okay? So it says, and he causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark. When you go into that word mark, it goes into charagma, all right, which is a cutting in the flesh, all right. Now, what would they be cutting in your flesh for? To insert something in it, okay? They're not just going to cut into your flesh and leave it open. No, they're cutting something into it. They're putting that pale, that stake. Let's go into that word mark.
Strong's G 5480, charagma. Charagma.
Now it goes into a stamp, an imprint, mark of the mark stamp on the forehead or the right hand as the badge of the followers of the Antichrist. The mark branded upon horses, thing, carved, sculpture, graven, work of idolatry, of idolatrous images. Now let's look into that root word of charagma, which is the charax.
Strong's G 5482, charax. Charax.
Now pay very close attention. It says a pale or stake, a pelicide. Now when you look up what a pale or a stake looks like, or a pelicide, it looks like a sharp object. Matter of fact, let's just see if we can go there. So you kind of see right here, this is a pelicide. It looks like a shape. It almost looks like a needle, okay? I thought it would have one, separately by itself, but let's see. It says a fence of wooden stakes or iron railings fixed in the ground, forming an enclosure or defense. Now let's see if we can go back and get a pale. Maybe this is just one by itself. Check up the images. Come on. You see how Esau is being difficult right now? The one I need steak, it won't give it to me. Like it will the other ones. Let's just see. We'll go there. See, Esau knows exactly what he's doing. But a pale or a steak, it looks like this pelicide right here. Okay? It looks like this. Let's see if I can get one close up. It looks like just one of these, though. Not a whole fence, but just one. That's what a steak or a pale looks like. All right? But it won't give me that because, it wants to hinder the lesson. All right? But nevertheless, you know what? I'll just pause it and look it up. All right, so I did a little research and I went into stake that you use to stick in the ground, and this is what it looked like. These are stakes, all right? And these are similar to what pails look like too, all right? And this is similar what they're going to use to administer the RFID microchip via by the way of a hypodermic needle, all right? Because this goes into the root word of charagma, which is a stamp or imprint, which is charax, which is a stele, a stake, a pale, or a palisade, all right? And this is what they are, all right? You can see this right here is a stake or a pale that they're going to use to put into the ground, but they're going to use that hypodermic needle to put it inside of you, okay? So this is a stake to stick in ground. as we can see right here. All right, just giving you some images. All right, this is one right here. It's a sharp pointed object. All right, basically what it is a sharp pointed object, a stake. Now go into pale. It's also a sharp pointed object. Okay. A pale, more commonly referred to as a stake, pellet, or picket, when driven into the ground, is a sharpened piece of wood or metal used to create barriers, support plants, or mark boundaries. When used in a row, these stakes form a palisade or stockade. All right. So the point being that the root word of charagma is charax, a pale or a stake, which is a sharp pointed object. All right. Now you have to be in the spirit to know that that's going to be the way they administer the RFID microchip via by the way of a hypodermic needle. All right. Which is a pill or a stake. Okay. See if I can get. So these are images of hypodermic needles that you can see how they look like a pill or a stake. Okay. This is what they're going to use to administer the RFID microchip inside of you. It's this hypodermic needle. All right. A pill or a stake, because you got to understand when John saw this, he explained it to the best of his ability what was given to him back then. Okay. So he used a charagma to what's the word I'm looking for? He used the word charagma to relate that this would be how they would use to give you the RFID microchip. Okay. So you can see how the microchip can go inside a hypodermic needle and that it can be what? Administered. Okay. This is the way how they're going to do it. All right. So now let's get back to the scriptures. So now that we got that root word for charagma, which is G5482, charax.
Strong's G5482, charax. Charax.
And we see the outline biblical usage is a pale or stake, a palisade. We know what a pale or a stake is. It's a sharp object, whether wooden or metal. But we know in the sense of administering the RFID microchip, it's going to be a hypodermic needle. All right. So this is why we have to go into depth, into details, and look up these words in the Greek. All right. There's no excuse. Study to show thyself approved. Okay. A workman not to be ashamed, rightly dividing the truth. So now we know where it says, and he causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark. We know that's got cut it in the flesh, and a pale with a pale or a stake, a sharp pointed object that's going to administer something in their right hand or in their foreheads. See, the RFID microchip in your right hand, the brain chip in your forehead. Okay, because why? We just seen. All right, in order for you to go into this grocery store in London, you need a QR code on your phone, which we know the smartphone is the predecessor or the forerunner or the precursor to the RFID microchip, which is going to have what? All your information on it, your passport, your doctor's, appointment, medical history, and everything else. All right. And we know the one that's allowed to have in your brain is going to have all that plus more. Okay. So what we saw was the forerunner or the precursor to this system that's getting ready to be put up and ran by the RFID microchip. So it says, and he causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark. That's that charagma. In their right hand or in their forehead. And that no man, woman or child, might buy or sell. See? So if you don't have it, guess what? You're gonna get turned around just like you saw those people in that grocery store. They came to buy food, but they didn't have that app downloaded on their phone. They got turned back right around because why? They had a woman there that was making sure that in order for you to come through those glass doors, you had to have that app on your phone and you had to get access to say you could come in the grocery store to what? Shop, to buy. It says, in that no man might buy or sell save he that had the mark. We just went into that word mark, charagma. The root word charax, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. And then it goes on to tell you in the next verse, what is it? Here is wisdom. Let him that have understanding count the number of the beast. Okay? Which is what? For it is the number of a man, and his number is 600, 666. 666. Chi, psi, stigma. Let's look it up. Let's look up that word. Chi, psi, stigma. Okay?
Strong's G 5516. Chi, psi, stigma. Chi, psi, stigma.
Now let's go into that root word, G4742.
Strong's G 4742. Stigma. Stigma.
Now we go into that root word, it goes into from the primary stizo to what? To stick, i.e. prick. So they're going to prick you with that charagma, with that charax, and in doing so, they're going to insert that RFID microchip the size of a grain of rice underneath your skin, all right? Your epidermis. They're going to implant you with that implantable device. It goes on to say, a mark pricked in or branded upon the body to ancient Oriental usage. Slaves and soldiers bore the name or the stamp of their master or commander, branded or pricked, cut into their bodies to indicate what master or general they belong to, right? And each RFID microchip is going to have the number of the elite that corresponds to who you belong to, all right? Whatever, let's say you belong to the Rothschilds, okay? Well, your RFID microchip is going to have what? That number on it that corresponds to what you belonging to the Rothschilds, because that's all your Social Security is right now. All right, but they're just going to make it more evident and clear at that point, at that time, okay? Because at that time, they're not going to have anything to hide, all right? Because the cat's already out of the bag, okay? So it says what? You're going to be branded by their number, all right? Who you belong to, okay? It says cut into their bodies to indicate what master or general they belong to. And there were even some devotees who stamped themselves in this way with the tokens of their gods. See? And then at that point, it's going to be known who you worship. All right? You worship this society, this system, this devil, Esau. All right? Or whoever else, because you may have, some of these other elites, in Germany or France or America, because, Esau is the so-called white man, all right? Not just here in America, but elsewhere, okay? So you're going to be belonging to wherever perspective part of the world you're located at, all right? To those wicked elites in that side, all right? So you may be belonging to the elites over there in France or who are in control over there in Spain, all right? So you're going to belong to whoever you get branded by when you take that RFID microchip, all right? And it's going to be a cutting into your flesh for the dead, which we know pursuant to Leviticus 19 and 28, that we're not supposed to have any cuttings in our flesh for the dead, okay? This is Leviticus 19 and verse 28. It says, ye shall not make any cuttings in your flesh for the dead. And this is not the Lord, as Yahweh says, the Most High is not the God of the living. I mean, it's like not the God of the dead, but of the living. So if you take this cut to put this chip inside you, you ain't doing it to worship Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahweh Shai. You're doing it to worship your God, the devil, all right? Whichever one of these elite bankers that's going to take control over you once you take it. And they can cut off your chip whenever they feel like it, all right? You get out of control. You get unruly. You post things on the internet you're not supposed to post. You talk about those people over there in the country. Guess what? They're gonna shut off your chip, whether it's in your forehead, or in your hand. They're gonna shut it off. All right. You use too much emission for that month. They're gonna reduce it to the next month. See, it's gonna be a totalitarian system where they got control of everything. So the law says Leviticus 19:28 says, ye shall not make any cuttings in your flesh for the dead, nor print any marks upon you. I am Yahweh. See? So the Lord gave us Israelites things that we're not supposed to do that separates us from the other heathenistic nations. All right. Now, these other heathens, these other nations, they can take the RFID microchip. It doesn't matter to them. All right. This prophecy doesn't pertain to them. It only pertains to us Israelites. All right. You got a Chinese, a Moabite that gets an RFID microchip. Hey, he ain't going to get delivered anyways. So he can take it. You got an Edomite that takes the microchip. They can take it. It ain't for them. All right? This prophecy is only for the Israelites. If you take it, your ass is grass, especially if you here in America, Babylon the Great. You're going to be destroyed by the way of thermonuclear missiles. All right? So that was pretty much it. We'll go ahead and close out with 1 Peter chapter 5 and verse 8. And it reads, be sober, be vigilant. See? If you don't understand what the mark of the beast is and you think it's sin in all its form, or sleeping with white women, or embargoes, and you mess around and take it, and that's it. Ain't no coming back. No matter what you've been told, ain't no coming back. Revelation 14 and 9 tells you the consequences of taking it. Doom for worshipers of the beast, this system. And the third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, if any man worship the beast in his image, how are you going to do that? And receive his mark, that charagma, in his forehead or in his hand, either one. What shall happen? The same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of the Most High, which is what? Which is poured out without mixture into the cup of his indignation. When those missiles come to destroy America, those that have received the mark here in America will be destroyed. Talking about our people, the Israelites, the so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans, they're going to be destroyed right along rest with these other heathens. When likewise, if they didn't take it, they would have been delivered by the way of Yahweh Shai and the chariots. It says, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of the Most High, which is poured out without mixture into the cup of his indignation. And he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone. See, those are those missiles. All right? And also those chariots, they're going to be zapping people too, man. Those chariots are going to be zapping people with those concentrated beams of fire. Pursuant to 2 Ezra 13. It says, and he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb. All right? That's Yahweh Shai alongside the host of the heavenly army. Those angels coming alongside the chariots. All right? So you take that chip, that's it. You finish. All right? You just have to wait out your judgment. Ain't no repenting. Ain't no coming back from that. All right? So now we go ahead and close out with 1 Peter chapter 5 and verse 8. And it reads, be sober, be vigilant. See? So ain't no excuse why you don't know what the mark of the beast is, all right? Other than you just don't have the faith. You don't believe, okay? You don't want to acknowledge that it is what it is, and you want to continue to what? Believe that it's something else. So once you take it, that's it. There's no more, cloak or excuse for your sins, because you knew better. You had the opportunity, the chance to understand and know not to take it. But if the Lord ain't dealing with you, guess what? You gonna take it. So it says, 1 Peter 5 and 8, be sober, be vigilant. Why? Because your adversary, the devil, see? And the devil's playing on your mind all the time. It can't be no microchip. It can't be no RFID microchip. See? I had someone break down, said it was sin. It was thinking about sin in your forehead, then playing it out with your hand. See, it means if you sin and you think about it with your mind, and then you act it out with your hand, that's what the mark of the beast is. So how are you going to buy and sell with thoughts of sinning? And that's something you got to really ask yourself. You're going to go inside the grocery store and tell them, I sinned today. I thought about, sleeping with my best friend's wife. Can I go in and buy, a pack of Oreo cookies? And they're going to say, sure, come on right in. All right. You sinned. You thought about sleeping with your best friend's wife. You get 45 tokens to go buy whatever you want to buy. That does not make sense one bit. Okay. Because we're sinning right now and we're buying and selling. Okay? We're sinning right now. We're buying and selling. Okay? So that goes to tell you that it can't be sin. Because you won't be able to buy and sell if you were sinning. And as you know, we sinning as a nation and even individually. All right? Because we don't know, if you touch something that, let's just say a woman was, on her menstrual that time of the month, you touch something and you unclean. Then you go in and you buy something and they didn't ask you whether or not you sin, because sin isn't the mark of the beast. It's the RFID microchip. But see, they can tell whether or not you have the microchip if they have a device to see whether or not they scan your hand to see if you got the chip. And if you don't, guess what? No access. But if you do, guess what? You could come in just like that smartphone. You scan your phone with the app, the QR code, you got it, you enter. You don't, you get turned back around. See? What makes more sense? Buying and selling with an RFID microchip or buying and selling with sin, which they can't quantify whether or not you sin other than if you tell them that. So it says, be sober, be vigilant, all right? The Lord put man into position to let us know exactly what the mark of the beast is so we won't take it before it comes. The Lord is not cruel to let us out there to dry without having a way back to what? The Father through his only begotten Son, Yahushua. So be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary, the devil, as a roaring lion, walketh about, seeking whom he may devour. Right. You got these Israelite camp leaders that's setting the people up. They're telling them that the mark of the beast is anything but the RFID microchip. That's playing on their thoughts, their minds. Then you got other, people that's saying that it isn't the RFID microchip, but only the elect is going to see the significance and the importance behind knowing what the mark of the beast is and what to do when it happens, when it comes to pass. All right. Which we just seen a forerunner or a precursor to this system being put into place over there all the way across the pond in London and Greenwich in an Aldi, grocery store, because they have Aldi's here. They have a chain of supermarkets called Whole Foods that, you have to have an app too, but it's not, mandatory where if you don't have it, you can't come in and shop. I don't think, at least not now it isn't. Or yet it isn't. but it will be. All right. And they're going to have those troops, those Gergeshen troops, those, whether it's National Guards, foreign troops or whatever, that's going to reinforce these policies. All right. Because people going to be out here, starving, and they ain't going to want to take the mark, and they're going to try to come into the store and force their way in, and they're going to be met with what? Lethal action, lethal ammo, putting you down. All right. It's going to be very wild and bizarre out here once all hell breaks loose. Lord willing, we coming into those times. But until then, we got to be what? Sober and vigilant. All right. And continue to do the work, and don't allow this damn devil, to creep into your mind and have you to go astray. All right. And not just the one that's in your mind, but also outside influences. Okay. Study to show yourself approved. Okay. A workman not to be ashamed, rightfully dividing the truth. Okay. Got to look up some of these words. Okay. That's what's going to help build up your foundation and keep you moving and keep you going, Lord willing, if you of that number, the elect. All right. So that's pretty much going to be it. So with that being said, pray someone was edified through this lesson. And until the next time, if it be the Lord's will, Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shah, stay strong, stay in the faith. We're almost home. Shalom. Peace.